This announcement today recognizes that Empire actor Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. My concern is that hate crimes will now publicly be met with a level of skepticism that previously didn't happen.
How can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
To be quite honest, it's shameful.
An angry Chicago police superintendent today laying out the case that they have against Jussie Smollett, who is now charged with falsifying this alleged hate crime, planning a bogus hate crime, including mailing a letter to himself, as the assistant state attorney laid out in intricate detail. Now, when this first happened and his explanation for it, everyone seemed to weigh in, including presidential candidates. Cory Booker and Kamala Harris both called it a modern-day lynching in tweets. Just moments ago, Senator Harris released a statement about this after being asked repeatedly on the trail about it. Like most of you, I've seen the reports about Jussie Smollett, and I'm sad, frustrated, and disappointed. When anyone makes false claims to police, it not only diverts resources away from serious investigations, but it makes it more difficult for other victims of crime to come forward. At the same time, we must speak the truth. Hate crimes are on the rise in America. Part of the tragedy of this situation is that it distracts from that truth and has been seized by some who would like to dismiss and downplay the very real problems that we must address. We should not allow that. I will always condemn racism and homophobia. We must always confront hate directly, and we must always seek justice. Kamala Harris there from the trail. Let's bring in our panel. Matthew Continetti, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon, national security analyst Morgan Ortagus, and Jonathan Swan, national political reporter for Axios. Pretty well worded, Jonathan, in that response, but a sticky issue for these candidates who obviously went down the road when this first came out.
Right. The first statement was, passionate and righteous, and she was asked about it. There was a piece of video where she was asked about it and sort of had this strange moment where she turned to her staff looking quite irritated, and then turned back and clearly thought more about it and put out this statement. There have been other politicians. I think Nancy Pelosi deleted her tweet initially where she condemned this. So there was a whole lot of people who initially condemned this who are now in various ways trying to quietly walk it back.
Morgan, the police superintendent in Chicago, I think a lot of people were riveted by Eddie Johnson. Here's another piece of it.
How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face? To make things worse, the accusations within this phony attack received national attention for weeks. When you get the opportunity, the shooting victims and families in this city that are victims of those crimes, give them the same amount of attention.
Morgan.
Yeah, I thought the police chief did an excellent job there, but what he did leave out of that press conference was the political element to this, and that's why this has gotten more coverage than all of the tragic murders that the police chief spoke about. And so I did think it was a missed opportunity to talk about that. One thing that we have learned is that Jussie Smollett is a great actor. I've watched him on Empire, but he's a terrible writer. When we see what he staged, not only in this attack, but in the letter, and of course the resources that were diverted. One thing I would say, just going back to Kamala Harris, one thing to remember is there are plenty of people who voted for President Trump in 2016 that also voted for Barack Obama. So I think while it might not help her in a primary, it's important to remember those voters and to keep those voters in the back of her mind, and to remember that those people could still potentially be winnable. And whenever she addresses it fairly and shows that she's not biased to everyone that is supportive of Trump, there may be an opening there.
The president did not stay out of this. Some said they thought he might, but he did not. At Jussie Smollett, what about MAGA and the tens of millions of people you insulted with your racist and dangerous comments? Hashtag Make America Great Again. Notably, he didn't tweet about the Coast Guard officer who was arrested by the FBI and his background of planning white nationalist killings. But your thoughts in the big picture here, Matthew, as we look at kind of where we are in this culture moment?
We're nowhere good. Like the same people who rushed to embrace Smollett's faux story were the people who rushed to criticize the Covington Catholic boys when that snippet of viral video came out from the pro-life movement march in D.C. And what is the connective tissue, right? It's a willingness to believe the worst of Donald Trump and his supporters. And that's why people rushed to back Smollett. That's why they rushed to condemn the Covington Catholic boys. And now Republicans sometimes are always eager to embrace the worst critiques of Democrats, but we see time and time again that the mainstream media amplifies the liberal critique of Republicans to a far greater extent than it does the conservative critique of Democrats. And this willingness to believe narratives, no matter their truth, is very dangerous to democracy, which depends, Brett, as we know, on evidence and patience.
You've seen the president and how he deals with Twitter, and obviously he saw this moment as a political, like, hey, this is the point. My supporters are getting blamed for everything.
To his defense, I mean, it wasn't Trump who inserted himself in this moment. It was Jussie Smollett. I mean, he's the one who said that the people were walking around Chicago saying this is MAGA country, you know, lynching people, etc. So, you know, this was not something that Trump inserted himself in. He was explicitly inserted in the story by the hoaxer. So I will give Trump some defense there.
There you go.
Let's get back to one of our Fox top stories. We are awaiting a court hearing for actor Jussie Smollett amid growing concerns over the social implications of his arrest for allegedly staging a hate crime attack. Chicago's police superintendent says he worries Smollett's actions will cast doubt on real victims in the future. Watch.
Now, of course, the Chicago Police Department will continue to investigate all reports of these types of incidents with the same amount of vigor that we did with this one. But my concern is that hate crimes will now publicly be met with a level of skepticism that previously didn't happen.
Joining me now is Tyrus, Fox News contributor and co-host of UnPC on the Fox Nation streaming service. Tyrus, I know you just got off a plane and stepped in here, so I appreciate you coming in. On first blush, when you found this out, what did you think?
I thought the story at first was suspect, but I withheld judgment. I made no comment, but I thought it was just too many descriptions in the original story. There was a lot of extra details, and being a guy who's worked in security for a long time in nightclubs and stuff like that, when somebody is attacked, it's usually very difficult because it's such traumatic. It happens so fast. They usually don't see things, so it's very hard for them to give descriptive details of what happened. Even things leading up seconds before, minutes before, they're usually very confused. And he was just really way too, there was just too many details for me. But I did this little trick called holding your tongue until you pass judgment.
Yeah, it's a trick. Apparently a lot of people don't have that trick. No. And you're very outspoken.
Yeah, I got a big mouth.
I want to talk to you, though, about the social elements with this. And the superintendent today seemed to get very emotional at this point. You know, he's black. He said he's leading a city where it's had some racial stress, and he understands the leveraging of racial pain in an instance like this for personal benefit. Those were his points of view. Everything's still alleged until we find out all the facts.
Yeah, my thoughts echo his. The frustrating thing for this is when somebody is really a victim and is really assaulted, and if they are somebody of fame, the first thing that's going to pop in everyone's mind is it for, you know, in this case they're alleging it was over salary. You know, like, what were the reasons for this? You know, I tend to think that he has some serious attention-seeking issues.
You're an actor.
Yes, and I still want to be one too.
And so when you look at this, you talk about those attention issues. We know that he had a salary issue that he didn't, according to reports on this police superintendent today, that this was pushed because he felt like he wasn't being paid enough on the show of Empire.
Yeah, but I don't understand how this would help him. I guess that's it's got me just racking my brain. What possessed this young brother to think that this was a good idea? I mean, there's no way, it was never going to get away with this, if allegedly. I'll keep throwing it out there.
He's a suspect. He went from victim to suspect.
Yeah, and that's pretty damning. The other two gentlemen involved, the two brothers involved, there's a videotape of them buying.
They're cooperating witnesses.
They're cooperating fully, and there was a bank statement of $3,500 that was paid to them by him. So it looks pretty rough.
You know, you could see it in our newsroom, and I would imagine people in front of their TVs around and mobile devices around the country and the world at that moment to see what had really happened. When you hear the Chicago PD superintendent say this about the pain of racism to his advantage and using that, let's watch this and then we'll talk.
This announcement today recognizes that Empire actor Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. I'm left hanging my head and asking why. Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations?
You know, I saw you hang your head for a moment there too.
It's so frustrating. I mean, this has literally, and I said this before, this has been one of the most challenging Black History Months that I can ever remember. We've had so much hate and so many deceptive things and when you have to focus all the energy and the nation stops because it's different. We've come to a point, we still have a long way to go in some aspects. We've come to a point when behavior like this happens, when someone's actually attacked, the nation as a whole stops and wants to know why. It's not just a cover-up, so to speak. Like, you know, if you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was a little different back then when something like this might not even made the news, even if he was making it up. And now, national attention, there's the whole city of Chicago. There was 12 detectives on this. I mean, there was politicians coming out, and although politicians sometimes use these to help their own message, but people, and I'm not, but everyone ran to this man's aid. But there's that, you know, goes back to that story, you know, little boy calling wolf.
Well, and there's the political aspect that the president talked about, that the only symbolism wasn't just the rope, which was horrific. It was also the thought that there was a MAGA hat involved and intent, and that wasn't true.
Yeah, and that's actually, it was the MAGA hat that threw everything off. Listen, there's bad people who wear the MAGA hat. There's also good people who wear the MAGA hat. So the MAGA hat, they got to take that hat back because take it away from the negative light. So that's besides the point. Ski masks, MAGA hat, unknown subject, which was the rumor to be bleach. I mean, those are two different hate crimes.
Yeah.
White supremacists typically don't pour bleach on you to make you look lighter. That's kind of not.
Can we talk real quickly about the social media element in all of this and how some of the politicians, Kamala Harris and others, I mean, what happens on social media to light this? We didn't.
No.
We looked at this quite differently as people of color. Why did this light up so quickly?
Because politics. This is a national issue. People are going to tune in and be like, what's going on? And they want to be on it. They want to be a part of that story. Instead of common sense saying, hey, let's wait and see what happens. I think that needs to be the new hashtag.
Well, Senator Cory Booker got there after he used the word lynching, and then he said, no, maybe I should wait for the facts.
And when he said that, I jumped all over him, and that's when I got in. One post.
I saw it.
And I was very respectful. I said, with all due respect, sir, like, you called it, you know, you're going to call something a lynching, and now it's starting to look like it was a really bad theater show. You know, like you need to be, that's why you're going to struggle with getting the American people behind you, because you need to take stands and you need to condemn as well as when you want to protect somebody, but when they're wrong, you need to have that same vigor, and people respect that because that's called integrity. Not just, I'm only jumping behind you because it benefits me. You're wrong, you're wrong. I don't wish bad on this brother, but I'm ashamed of him. I'm ashamed to be an actor. I'm ashamed to be thrown in the same group as him because of this behavior. We make jokes sometimes when homies do dumb stuff like, bro, you just sent us back 10 years with that comment. He legitimately sent us back with this type of behavior because it's on the world scope.
Tyrus, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much. I was glad to be here.
Well, if you haven't already, check out Fox Nation, our subscription streaming service that's packed with content, including Tyrus' show on PC. He hosts it daily alongside Britt McHenry at 6 p.m. Eastern. And you can watch it anywhere.
Anywhere.
Even on the app.
On the app.